So today I wanted to talk to you about a little bit of inspiration when it comes to the writing process in and of itself. Writing is one of those things where you can sit down to the blank page and you just kind of like beat your head against it, right? Or we could be out and about and be inspired by something or not have anything to write down. So what do we do in those particular moments and times? 80% of inspiration is just showing up to the page. I would say probably about 5% of it is coffee. And then 15% of that is going to be probably a sight, a sense, a texture, a sound, a metaphor, something that sort of is the impetus to get yourself in that mood and zone, right? So sometimes the best thing that you can do for yourself, even if you're not feeling inspired, is just to sit down before the page. A lot of times what I do is I just start writing words. Just gibberish words here and there, whatever thought line seems to connect itself. So I'll start with a word like, we could go with projector because there's one hanging out in the back of the room there. Well, where do I go from projector? I'm going to go to screen. Screen is TV, TV movie, and you just start generating these thoughts and ideas, and eventually your brain's going to catch on to something, right? When you sit down, do you typically sit down to a project or you sit down just to meet the page? What do you guys do?
Well, I haven't sat down in 10 years, so
Yeah.
This is my reboot.
I like it. I like a reboot.
But
Okay.
I'm an avid oral storyteller and make up really cool songs in the moment.
Yeah.
Like there's a woman named Haley, don't you know that it's true? She's leading spark and inspiring too. Now she's calling out your heart and your soul you see like a shooting star illuminating me.
Oh, I love it. That's great. Thank you so much. Wow, just to be able to have that in the moment, that's wonderful. You're really going to love Michelle Little. Michelle Little is an oral historian that we have later on this week who will be talking about capturing story from oral storytelling, so that's probably something you'd really enjoy. Okay, Miriam, what do you do for inspiration?
If I feel blocked, I feel like I need to read other people's work or go to a museum or listen to music or walk.
I love it. Yeah. So much about thinking about inspiration is movement, is motion, is making sure that you're getting out. The Lake District poets of the Romantic period would actually just go and take incredibly long walks, right? So much about writing can be solved on a walk. If you're stuck in a problem, just getting it, thinking about it, ruminating on it. We have to make space for writing. If you don't make that space, then other things will consume you in your life. They're going to fill that space, right? And then, what do you do?
Typically, I have an assignment due, and I have to do it for a grade, and it works.
Deadlines.
Deadlines work.
Yeah.
The anxiety of a deadline is absolutely a motivator. I have noticed that the more I progress in my writing life, the less the deadline actually does motivate me. So trying to reach down into something, like you do that for so long and then it just kind of peters out. And then what do you do, right? Rachel, how about you? What do you do?
I think all of the above. Walking usually helps.
Yeah,
me as
walking?
well. But
Mhm.
it's really hard to walk when it's so hot.
It has been so hot out, right? So it's been very difficult to engage with nature and everything around us, which can be so much a source of inspiration. So I want to go ahead and introduce to you a couple of different things that I myself use within my writing to sort of get myself writing, right? So the first of those is going to be metaphor. Metaphor, taking something and comparing it to another thing, describing it through another thing. So how is a tree like a human being? What sort of ideas can we use to connect those two?
It branches out.
Hey, it branches out, right? All right, what else?
It's hard.
It's hard. Okay.
It kind of has veins.
It has veins, so it has a circulatory system, right? So if we start to get into the anatomy of the thing, trees have trunks, they have veins. Sometimes they have bushy tops that look like certain haircuts, right? Do what?
Roots.
Roots! Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
tree, right?
Yeah, we have roots, trees have roots. So you start leaning into these things. You can make these comparisons with any two things that seem unalike, right? Reach for that vocabulary, reach for that image. Is it sight? Is it smell? Is it connected by idea, right? So a lot of what I see when I am trying to create my metaphor is connecting through stream of ideas. So the other day I was driving down Crestwood Boulevard, right? And I look over and there's that giant Amazon distribution center. Well, okay, what did they tear down in order to make that? They tore down Century Plaza. They tore down an in-person mall to create an online mall. So that piece of land is tied by those two ideas, right? Still the idea that we're buying things and that we're distributing things, but yet they've been completely separated from one another. So how can we start a conversation based off of those ideas? Metaphor is useful because it creates interesting language. It creates how do you talk about dancing with the language of cooking, right? How are you going to talk about peppering your dance steps with spices? Or how are you going to talk about something sizzling? Or in what way is a dance like cutting an onion or like frying an onion, right? Or going off of that same metaphor, how would we describe dance through something else entirely? How is dancing like flying a plane, right? How do we start to connect those ideas? Well, they both sort of transport us somewhere else, right? The sensation of flying. How do we talk about having wings when we dance? How do we talk about gravity, taking off, landing? It's a trip, isn't it? So we start to get into like, okay, I see how we are connecting these two things that are unlike one another. So metaphor is very much a jumping off point for me. In addition to that, structure, form. Okay, so when we think about the form of whatever it is we're trying to write, so I'm a poet, so I typically go to poetry, but I also enjoy writing memoir, I enjoy writing flash fiction, story. And when we look at a narrative arc, right, it is an arc, but also if you start off, we go up and then we return to the same plane where we were. Right? So when we look at narrative structure, when we look at poetry, if we start in the interior space, we start in one spot. If we start with the I or the me, and then we sort of branch out, and we look at the things out and around us, and then we return to the interior space, again, suddenly we have a narrative arc. Or even if we start in the outward space first, describing the world around us, and then describing the interior of something, and then going back outward. That again is form and structure. It's a narrative arc that we can reach to. Then you've got things like weave stories, right? Where you take two different storylines and you sort of weave them back and forth. You're switching point of view. Point of view is another way that we can sort of get out of our head and into something else. Let's say you take a memory or something that has happened to you in the past, and maybe you're too close to that. Maybe it's very intimate and you don't want to write about it because then other people would know. Or maybe it's one of those difficult things where it's a story, but there are other people involved in the story who don't want you to tell that story. Well, what do we do then, right? Change some of the details, change the point of view. The point of view does not always have to be you. You can change who you are within a story and make that story entirely something different. Maybe the story happened to you when you were 10 years old, all right? Give yourself 10 years. Make it a story told from a 20-year-old's point of view. You're going to get different points of view by changing age, right? Because we see that in things like To Kill a Mockingbird and Go Set a Watchman, right? So Harper Lee actually wrote Go Set a Watchman, which is told from Scout's point of view while she's in her 20s. That was the book that she wrote first, and her publisher was like, no. So what did she do? She then wrote To Kill a Mockingbird, which was her first published book, written from the point of view of Scout as a young child, right? Point of view completely different. You can set those two books side by side and go like, whoa, the character has changed. There's been a lot of evolution here. So too, your story will change if you change the point of view. You change your gender, you change the family member that this thing is happening to, right? So maybe it's something that happened to your cousin. Well, who's not to say it didn't happen to your aunt, right? So if you take that personal inspiration, you do not have to hold to all of the details within the story. You can change real life into fiction. And that's totally fine to mine your experience, because so often we do write from experience. But you don't have to pass that experience off as truth. Another thing that I really love is diving into our senses, right? So we've got the 5 senses, and we can go either with like sensory overload, choosing a particular sense and really diving into it and saying, hey, this is what I smell, and then just describing everything about that smell, and maybe that smell triggers a memory, and maybe that memory is the way into your story. Or you can do it through sensory deprivation, right? By not reaching towards a certain sense, by describing a time where you couldn't see something, or you couldn't smell something, or you're trying to remember the smell of something. There is a particular smell every time I run across it, and I do not know how to describe it, but it takes me back to first grade. I don't know if it's a perfume. I don't know if it's a cleaner. I don't know if it is a utensil used in the classroom that generates this smell. But every time I pass by it, which is maybe once every 2-3 years, it's not a very commonplace smell. It takes me immediately back. But once it's gone, it's gone. I can't describe it for you. I wish I could, because it is a smell that sort of embraces me. It's a smell that makes me feel like I'm in a safe spot. And that absence within itself creates its own grief, because I wish I could go find it. I wish I knew the name of it. I wish I could participate in it more often, but I am so frequently dependent upon just the outside world bringing me across this smell that I can't actively participate in on my own. That in itself is a story. What are the things you don't remember? What are the things you can't access? Those are jumping off points as well. Wishes. Man, I wish I could have. Man, I wish I knew. What did you wish you could learn? What were you not taught? What did you wish you could learn but you have difficulty learning? Right? I so far stay far away from knitting. I have crocheted. There's 1 hook involved. You start throwing in 2, that's a little much. Also, I do not need more hobbies to participate in, so I have sworn off knitting. It absolutely boggles my mind. I think it is amazing that other people can knit and create things out of that. I know that there's some kind of link between knitting and the binary code and the same code and language that we use to code computers, which I think is absolutely incredible, but that is an enigma to me. I wish I knew how it worked. And maybe you write fantasy, maybe you have world building, maybe your way in is taking something that exists here on Earth and describing it in a way of which it does not work. Maybe I take knitting, I take a binary code, and I explain how it works on a different planet, or in a different fantasy, or in a different realm. Sometimes knowing all the things all the time sort of works against you. It doesn't necessarily give you the space to open things up. Sometimes knowing a lot of things does help you. It allows you to make faster associations between things. It allows your metaphor to become a faster process, right? Okay, so what I would like to do for you now is I would like us to take probably 10 minutes, okay? I want you to create a metaphor that compares a vehicle, whatever vehicle of your choice, okay, but a mode of transportation, and ballet. So maybe you create word associations, maybe this starts you off into a story. Those are your 2 metaphors. Those are your 2 things to metaphor, all right? So I want you to just start digging into that. Where is that going to take you? What sort of words is that going to bring you into? You can go ahead and look up things if you so choose, or maybe you want to just stay far away from that. Maybe you don't want to delve into any kind of research, but you are more than welcome to do so. So I'm going to give you 10 minutes to do that, to sort of take us into that process. All right, for those of you joining us, Instagram cut out because we had music playing and they didn't like that. So we are creating a metaphor between the idea of a vehicle and ballerina, right? Ballet. So in order to create those ideas, in order to bridge that link, we need to find things that are similar about the two, right? So can you do it via language? Can you do it via image? Can you do it via sight, smell, the idea of the thing? So we're doing that for about 5 more minutes, and then we will move on with the rest of our talk today. Does anyone online have any questions? Thank you guys for joining us. Yes, we are creating a metaphor between the idea of a vehicle, so that can be any kind of vehicle. Think just like mode, method of transportation, and the idea of a ballerina or ballet, just that dance in general. So are you going to do that through sight, sound, smell? What are the things that bridge the gap between those? Because those are very like not similar ideas, right? What is the similarity between a vehicle and ballet or a ballerina? In what ways can we make that connection? Is it going to be through image? Is there something about an image that connects the two of them? So any kind of like spinning or flipping, or what are the actions that happen in ballet that can also be used to describe a vehicle? Maybe this starts you in on a story. Maybe you have an idea that just comes from thinking about those two things, and maybe you go off in a completely different direction. There's no wrong way to do this. So. Oh, you are Spark. But you can't, if you are the account that's going live, you can't see the account.
I can't see the comments, so I can't comment.
Oh, we'll switch yourself over to.
Comment for my own account.
Yeah. our time. So, does anyone want to share what they've written? You do not have to. You are welcome to. I don't like call names and put people in tough positions when it comes to sharing work. But if you would like to, I would love to hear what you guys have to say.
Okay.
All right, go for it.
Her feet ran faster than the roadrunner escaping a coyote. She had to escape the horror of his control. She did a full arabesque into the rusted-out Jeep as her trembling fingers emitted the energy of the key to full throttle. The tires pirouetted through the sandy stones, flinging them in all directions, to create a path of healing and hope that would allow her soul to be still and clear into the vast horizon of what could be, instead of the continual spinning of what had been and could never change form.
Oh, I love that. Using the language of ballet to show something else entirely. That's great. That's wonderful. All right, Miriam, did you want to?
Sure. On tiptoes you don't x-ray your way to my broken bones. This escalator jerks its way to that fear of getting stuck in metal teeth, although pointed shoes are far too big for that. Ribbons dangle, you, the predator who loves pink and the taut softness of my belly, growling to get into tights, get on the other floors, get on with starvation, coffee, diet coke, water fizzing in a toilet bowl. Climb, you said, you have done harder things before. Second floor, plie, third floor, a little lift. Hold on to a rail, you fragile, fragile thing. Smile for the audience, fourth floor, almost in pink, almost arriving, joints creaking in the jaggedy movement, never in pink, never arriving. The audience shifts in their seat, vertiginous, creaking of floorboards. Don't stop. You theater whisper from the sides, my face caked in anxiety butterflies. Every which way faces turn to observe. If they are blank, how will they ever understand? Arrive. Enjoy how I pink across the stage. These ostrich legs transport me to the other side. Third floor, second floor, I'm out.
Very nice. I love that. Thank you. Thank you. Again, playing with the language, playing with the movement. That's wonderful. Right? Anyone else? All right. Thank you.
Vehicle or ballet, start, stop, stop, start, precision critical, awareness key, a story unfolding, possibilities endless, held together tightly, unable to release control. Release control equals death, release control equals failure. Broken bones, bleeding toes, pushed to the limit, powerful and fragile.
I love it. Lots of movement, lots of motion in that, lots of energy. Great. Anyone else? I loved how charged those were, right? So when you think about vehicles and them taking you from one place to another, and when you think about ballet, when you think about dance or ballerinas, you've got the sense of always being in motion. Like that's what makes it the thing that it is, right? You just don't ballet by standing there. I mean, I'm sure someone could. I'm sure you say something and then someone can come in and be like, bet, I'm going to take that idea and I'm going to completely turn it on its head, which would be wonderful. I would love to see that. But just that vivacity of movement is wonderful. You guys did such a good job. Right on. Okay, so for the remainder of our time, we're going to take probably about 10 more minutes, and we're going to do another one, but this time not through metaphor. This time we're going to go through our senses, okay? So I want you to take your sense of smell or your sense of sight, and I want you to describe something that you have never smelled or you have never seen before, and I want you to tell me about it, right? Which can be difficult. How do you talk about something you've never smelled before? How do you imagine it? Well, that's the challenge of the process, right? How do you talk about something that you have never ever seen? Which, granted, with the internet and the way we can share pictures nowadays, we get a lot of that. We get a lot of being able to see snippets of things that we haven't seen in real life and in person. But what's something that you would like to see? How do you imagine that thing would be or appear to you? I'm trying to think of something that I have never seen myself. like in person. There are so many spots like around the world that I've never seen, but that I've seen pictures of, and that's fine. But like, imagine yourself in that moment of seeing that thing in person for the first time that you have never seen before. Okay? All right, so that is your challenge, to describe something you have not seen or not smelled. Okay? And go. Man, there's nothing I love more than seeing a bunch of writers like fervently writing. You guys really latched onto that one. All right, anyone want to share? Emmett.
I'll share.
Cool.
Mine's kind of just like a list.
All right,
'Cause
go for it.
I couldn't pick one. I've never seen a tumorless MRI of my ex's brain. I've never seen the results of bottom surgery. I've never seen the Harvard graduation stage. I've never heard complete silence. I've never smelled fresh pasta in France. Never gulped the floral air of Frida Kahlo's house. Never felt the cold ocean of Massachusetts.
Dang.
Wow.
Right? All of those
Who's left?
real hard. Yeah. I also have. Very nice. Thank you, Emma. Okay. Anyone else?
I kind of kept thinking of the smelly, though you cannot tell.
Yeah?
So I was meant to be at a very good friend's wedding in Malta today, and I couldn't fly, so I wrote about that.
Mm.
It is a curious choice to get married in August in the Mediterranean, but as you describe it, it is all love. I've smelled love before, but not this one. I remember the red sky, how the sun didn't come up until 11. As I make my way to the front of the ceremony with difficulty, touching people's almost sweaty shoulders, I watch you love on each other in glances. It is curious, the smell of paper and Arabic gum, an almost manufactured love of school benches. But of course I know that is where you first met. That I'm running my fingers along yellow and black HB pencils, poster paints, dipping sandwiches in PVA glue fountain. You thought of everything. In the corner, an ER doctor tends to paper cuts. Some trickster erases the seating plan and rewrites it in green crayon. I match strips of paper, find suitable corners. Everyone's had their ceremony book covered in plastic. You get married with plastic rings and bracelets full of sweets.
I love it. It's wonderful. I'm so sorry you weren't able to attend your friend's wedding, but being able to imagine it, I mean, it takes you there at some part. I love that.
Yeah.
For those of you online, if you do wish to share, we won't be able to share it in real time, but if you want to email me at hmcotton, COTTON, @uab.edu, you can do so, and I will read what you have to say. So I'm going to go ahead and drop that at uab.edu. There you go. I just put my email address into the comments, so if you want to send what you've got, I'd love to read what you have. Okay, anyone else? Go for it.
Oh. The elemental cellular structure of DNA emitted the odor of a disturbing nose atmosphere. When the spirals join together, the intensity of odor is multiplied exponentially. Considering the frail fragments of disease that emit shards of glass through our being that once was complete but is now broken. Diabetes has the swirling smell of a cinnamon roll, balanced by the peppery saucer of high blood pressure. These are intermingled with the slow stream of a lazy eye and the rhythmic drumming of the deaf ear. The disturbing nose atmosphere emits flashes of midnight lightning to balance all that has been with all that will be.
I love it. Great. Thank you so much. Wow. Okay, Chelsea.
She'll see you now. Heart heightens, bile rises, individual nerves quiver. But rather than nosedive, I must bring myself to my feet when I enter. Not met with a face, but with a cloud of Aquanet hairspray of the thickest consistency. There is only she and I, and yet there is a veil of ozone-tearing mist that separates and clings to the air molecules while making its way to my face. When the humid mist settles, I catch her eyes through her mirror.
Very nice. I love it. You guys are killing it this morning. Like, you guys showed up ready to go. I love that. Great. All right, anyone else? You good? All right, awesome. So we're going to go ahead and wrap it up there. Thank you guys online for joining. I hope that you join us tonight via our community events on Zoom. So if you hit the link in our bio, you'll be able to register. It's free. It's at 7 o'clock tonight, Central Time. We have Ben Bush, will be joining us, and he will be talking about how to organize your ideas via sketching, and he's got an online tool as well that he'll introduce to us and show us how to use. So thank you guys for being here. I'm going to go ahead and let you guys go. Thank you guys so much.